The following has been put together to discuss different laws and policies that affect teaching and education in America.
No Child Left Behind is a law affecting the education system from kindergarten to 12th grade. It makes the schools accountable for students' achievements and penalizes schools that do not show improvement. The law was put into place in 2002 with the intention of providing public schools with more money to help students in poverty, minority students, students with special education needs, and those with limited English skills. Getting into the pros of No Child Left Behind, students are now being tested or assessed. This was not always the case in the past, as not all schools were required to formally assess students. With No Child Left Behind, all schools must provide all students with an annual test in reading and mathematics. Students can be helped through the testing process. Students with learning issues or other traits needing attention can now be more easily identified because of the test. The test now forces schools to identify students and their ability to pass. In the past, it was much easier for a struggling or failing child to just be pushed through so as to keep them moving through the school system. Now they are noticed. What this means can vary, but regardless, it has helped schools move away from long-term subs, uncredentialed teachers, and teachers not proving mastery of their subject field. Test scores have been on the rise since its inception. Unfortunately, this is a highly debated matter, and I will get into this more in the cons section. Lastly, students, due to school funding, are receiving more specialized tutor-type help. Because of the structure of No Child Left Behind, there is now more funding being put towards helping students both inside and outside of the classroom. One of the largest negatives to No Child Left Behind is the test. Teachers need to teach towards the test so that students do well. Since the school is now held to a higher level of responsibility, it is crucial that students perform well on the test. Other subjects or materials get pushed to the wayside when this happens. A large issue with this is that teachers are less able to teach more interesting or specialized lessons that students may gravitate towards. The teachers are also more stressed to make sure students have retained the information for the short term versus teaching them in a manner that works better for the long term. This has been referred to as the pump and dump method because students are pumped full of information only pertaining to the test and oftentimes in a manner that is less effective for long-term memory or use. Teachers in schools face a higher level of stress and criticism because of the consequences that poor test scores can lead to. This can lead to schools losing funding, teachers cheating, and schools even being closed. Teachers striving to keep their jobs or prove their worth are more inclined to change everything about their lessons so that students perform well, and this can lead to poor decisions. This is a downside to No Child Left Behind that has put a bad taste in many teachers' mouths, as many teachers strive for something greater than teaching to a standardized test. Lastly, the test is focused on math and reading, and it is done in a multiple choice format. This limits a school's academic focus on other significant subjects, does not fully test the students since it is multiple choice, and may cut funds in order to invest more heavily in math and reading. It also stymies children that are more driven towards physical education, science, the arts, etc. These children need these outlets in order to push and motivate them to the next level. The unknown. Test scores are up, but research says this is expected with any new test, and it may not tell the whole story. So while test scores are up, it is expected that regardless of the scenario, this would be the case, and it is still too soon to tell if this is real or not. Lastly, No Child Left Behind is in need of an update. It is behind on being reviewed and revamped, and until this is completed, the project will not be as effective. So in conclusion, No Child Left Behind is something all public schools and school teachers will face, and though it has positives and negatives, it is something that must be embraced and handled in the manner that best serves all individuals within the education system. Title IX was enacted in 1972 and served to stop gender-based discrimination within any federally funded education program or activity. This law extends to any and all educational programs and activities, regardless of participants' ages, meaning that this law has reached K through 12, college, university, and post-education training programs. It would first seem that there would be no cons when it comes to Title IX being enacted. Women would now be given equal opportunity to participate in anything and everything that men were provided. Men would also be allowed to expand their interests in subjects that may not have been so popular or accessible for their gender. Because it seems that Title IX would only come with pros, I will start this with the cons, or the unintentional consequences that Title IX has exposed us to. The first unintended consequence of providing more opportunities to females was with regards to sports and physical education.
The creation of equal physical education opportunities require that federally funded schools now provide twice the amenities. Women too need locker rooms, and the overall quantity of students required more teaching staff and more equipment. As time has shown, many schools around the nation struggle for enough financial resources, and the first way in which schools fixed this was to reduce the quantity of PE classes required. The end result is now PE is not a mandatory class for all years of education. This does nothing to help with the current obesity rate and health problem of many Americans. The good news is that both men and women are equally affected by the epidemic. Another concern that has developed since the Title IX's passing is the health of athletes, mainly being females. With the growth of children starting their sporting careers early, more children are being faced with childhood injuries that last long into their lives. Females are now equally as susceptible to these lifelong injuries. While this can be controlled with proper training regimens and common sense, it is something that was never seen until now. The attention to women's sports has grown drastically, and as it continues to, women will continue starting their physical years earlier and earlier. If this is overdone, then women will continue to face early childhood injuries that may have lasting effects. The last point I will discuss is related to coaching positions. As a whole new plethora of sports opened up to women, so did a job field for coaches. Since the inception of Title IX, female coaches have dropped in large numbers. As women's sports grow more competitive and with higher demands, the coaching field has been overtaken by males. The shift in the gender of the coach has nothing to do with the legality of the law, but with almost a 50% decline in female coaches from 1970 to 2005, it is clear that this was another unintended repercussion of Title IX. The pros of Title IX far outweigh the cons when looked at from a global standpoint. Women have made great leaps and bounds within the sporting world, and the advent of less gender discrimination continues to spill into everyday aspects of life and career. I am going to focus on the pros of Title IX, and focus more specifically on the less obvious or less discussed matters outside of women's sports and physical education. Some lesser discussed implications to Title IX was women now had more opportunities to career education with a broader range of career opportunities. While it is still discussed that women are paid less than men for the same job, it was not until Title IX that they were given a much larger scope of professions. Title IX helped keep women interested in education through the broadening of subjects. It allowed them to pursue greater levels of education, and it assisted pregnant women still pursuing their education. Title IX has also made a huge impact on sexual harassment. Now that women were being put on a more equal footing, it was not as acceptable for men to sexually harass females. This implication has been huge in the betterment of education and how women are treated. This continues to be an area that improves over time. Overall, women are now able to push much further in all avenues of life because the advent of Title IX stopped the empowerment of men from holding them back. This continues to be seen in politics, the military, corporate career goals, the arts, and the world over. Title IX's impacts have been one that has furthered the ability of not just women, but everyone who has gained from the success of women. To conclude, Title IX has been a huge game changer, no pun intended. Women in sports sometimes overshadow the latter effects, but the reality is that the law has produced many successful women. Even with any negatives considered, the law has been something that our country and world could not have succeeded without. The enactment of Title VI was born with the Civil Rights of 1964. During this time, it was made into law that no one in the U.S. would be discriminated against based on their race, color, or national origin during any sort of federally funded program or activity. With the passing of Title VI, schools were now required to enroll students in a manner that did not segregate or discriminate against them. This had a huge impact on children and families that were seen as minorities during that time period. Students now had better access to education, and the law now protected them because they were not forbidden against. The law's sole purpose was not focused entirely on education, though, and what happened afterwards is what really makes Title VI important. It was the catalyst for so many other laws and changes that did focus on education as well as other groups of individuals not covered by Title VI. After Title VI makes it illegal to discriminate against an individual due to race, color, or national origin, amendments start to follow. These amendments then go on to assist those that are handicapped. Bilingual education then follows to aid in the education of non-English speaking individuals, and as previously discussed, gender equality eventually kicks in. Without Title VI, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, many of our school students and teachers would not be present. the school system would be entirely different, and the development of individuals to understand other people would be grossly inadequate. This law serves as one that not only changed the education system at the moment, but also continued to change the education system going forward. Without it, many people would be isolated to underfunded and disadvantaged schools in which much talent and skill would be overlooked.